My name is Liam Young and I am a speculative architect and film director, and I tell stories about the global, urban and architectural implications of new technologies. World building is really, I think, the art of building imaginary worlds, and I'm interested in that because my background is in architecture, where typically we put a singular built object on a discrete site in the world. And maybe we deal with the direct adjacencies, but world building really imagines the entire flow of systems and networks, the broad planetary context in which that design object might sit within. So when we're thinking about making imaginary worlds, what we're really doing is contextualizing our design work in the context of much larger planetary stories. So the great endeavor is a vision of what will become humanity's largest ever construction project, the design and creation of a planetary network of carbon removal machines. And this really represents our generation's moon landing. All the reports say that even if we were to stop emissions tomorrow, which we're never going to do, but even if we did, we would still have to deal with 300 years of industrialization and the carbon that's already in the air warming our atmosphere. And at that kind of scale that's required to draw down that carbon, really the most viable and pragmatic solution we have is carbon removal and carbon sequestration. And a lot of our science collaborators talk about the scale that we need to do that at. And really it's about, in our generation, building a planetary scale network of carbon removal equivalent in scale to the current oil and gas industry. What that means is that every oil rig, every pipeline, every gas plant that currently exists on Earth, we need to build again to do the reverse. That represents the largest global collaboration, the largest construction project we've ever undertaken, and we're going to have to do it for hundreds of years. Yet we never talk about it. We never talk about this great generational project that is in front of us. The great endeavor is almost like a rally cry to try and bring people together around this idea of building this planetary network of carbon capture machines. So something like the great endeavor is a huge draw on power and resources. A big part of what we're doing is reusing the infrastructure of the fossil fuel industry in order to create it, rather than extracting more raw materials from virgin ground. And at the same time, that draw on power would come from what would need to be the construction of the world's largest wind farm, the world's largest solar plant. A shift towards renewables goes hand in hand with large-scale carbon removal. And large-scale carbon removal goes hand in hand with a move away from fossil fuels and the total reliance now on renewable energy networks. All of our works, although they might seem like wild visions of science fiction, are actually based in real pragmatic research and deep collaborations with scientists and technologists from around the world. Something like Great Endeavor is formed from a series of reports, scientific articles embedded in academic journals that speak to the scale of carbon removal that's required and the most viable solutions that we might have to do it at that scale. Really, my job as a designer, as a filmmaker, is one of science visualization, or the public outreach arm of this network of scientists. But really what we can do is take those proposals and visualize them using our capacity as designers and filmmakers to present the drama, the emotion and the power of those proposals in a way that audiences can start to connect to them. Climate change is now a crisis of the imagination, where all the technologies we need to dig us out of this hole are actually already here, and in many cases they've been here for 10 or 15 years. But really it's just our cultural will, our lack of political investment that is holding them back. All I'm really doing as a designer in the context of Planet City and the Great Endeavor is just taking technology that's already here, it's already proven and tested, and I'm just visualizing what it looks like when we scale it up and we truly embrace it at the size that we need to deal with the current climate crisis. What really the Great Endeavor is a film about a construction project. critical component of that film is the work and the labor that goes into building this extraordinary planetary scaled machine. What we'll see in the exhibition is a series of workwear costumes. These are traditionally utilitarian objects designed to protect the body, to keep it clean, to keep it safe, to keep it away from fire. And we've taken and reclaimed those objects from literal oil rig workers for Halliburton or Shell or Mobil. And we've taken these utilitarian objects, but then we've embroidered them with extraordinarily delicate and fine threads. We've embroidered them with motifs of the cultures and places where they're from, and the cultures and places where this carbon is going to be stored for all of eternity. So we're trying to elevate the worker into essentially what they become in the great endeavor, which is heroes of our age, building this machine to save us all from extinction. And these workwear costumes, typically associated with labor, become objects of precious materiality, from new glorious textiles that we designed, to try and transform them in the way that we think about them. So often when we see the future depicted in Hollywood science fiction, it's a dystopia, it's a cautionary tale. And especially in the context of climate change, we're so used to stories that are meant to be scaring us straight. But across time we've realized that actually those stories, they don't really change our behavior. What they do is paralyze us. The problem seems so large, so incalculable, that any singular action we might do seems almost fruitless, and at least implausible in many ways. So our most recent work has really been interested in trying to think about planetary scale, hopeful visions of the future. In a way, the works that we're going to be showing in Planetary Redesign are deliberately provocative. The ways that we've been thinking about a sustainable future are no longer sufficient. And that upsets a lot of people. You know, a lot of people have been devoting their lives fighting for these causes and fighting for these actions, and the futures that we're presenting don't look a lot like the things that they were fighting for, and that's difficult to imagine and to stomach in many ways. But really, there is no longer time to wait for these small-scale actions or individual change. Putting emphasis on the individual to shift their practices at a moment when we need radical and systemic change is really difficult. And a lot of the visions that we're putting forward are hard to imagine. The great endeavor and the machines that we see in it, this massive industrial infrastructure, doesn't look like the small community gardens and the quiet, individually scaled communal gestures that we've been telling ourselves that we need. And that's not to discount all of that work, but it's to say that we also need images like this. We also need this scale of infrastructure in order to solve the crises that we've created for ourselves. So it's not a solution that's exclusive of all these other actions. It's a solution that goes hand in hand with them, and that's important to understand. I think a critical role of designers is to put into the world viable, hopeful visions of our future that we can all start to rally behind.